good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk more about how to get more people watching your videos. And one of the most important things for us to concentrate on. Most of the time, we ignore this. And I'm going to be referring back to two of our other previous episodes together, so we can kind of bring all these together as a little bit of a masterclass. Now, some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today comes under this concept of brain influence, neuro influence. If you're into that kind of stuff and you want to work out how communication, social scientists, these kind of people are relating how the brain works in communication and habits and behavior change, here's two books. This one here is called Brain Influence, 100 Ways to Persuade and Convince Consumers with Neuromarketing. This concept of neuromarketing is kind of relatively new. Over the last 2 decades, it's been really gaining some weight where we now have sophisticated kind of functional MRIs. And we can look and see, what people's brains are doing when they're watching different kinds of videos, when they're reading different kind of headlines, when they're being communicated in different ways. That's one book through there. This other one through here is called Persuasion Code as well. How neuromarketing can help you persuade anyone, anywhere, anytime. Hey, big headlines there too. They're both really heavy books. They're not, if you suffer from a little bit of insomnia, these might be good ways to get you to sleep. But in the nuts and bolts of it, we need to make sure that the messages that we're sharing are stimulating the right parts of the brain and causing people in the social media platforms, in their email inbox, wherever they might be consuming your content, having them stop. That's, I think, is the biggest challenge at the moment, is that we live in such a distracted world. Now, our brains are primed, and we're going to talk about this in a moment there too, to not be stopped and focused on one kind of thing. We had our days when we used to kind of wander along the savannah, and if we got focused on one particular thing, we might have missed that there was a predator off to one side, and that might have meant life and death. And so, we're stimulated by bright lights, by movement, by sounds, by bright colors, all those kind of things there too. And so we want to take that, we want to think about that when we're putting our videos together. More and more of you are doing a great job with coming up with wonderful content. Remember, the major goal of our content, for the vast majority of our content, is really to help to get our audience one step closer to the health outcome they're looking for. We're creating great how-to content, transformational content. We're also creating content that is connection content. And remember, connection content lets your community see behind the curtains. They get to engage with us a little bit, find out exactly who we are. This kind of content, connection content, is probably the kind, if you're sharing this kind of stuff, you'll probably be telling me that it gets more engagement, more comments, more likes than anything else. It's definitely true. I was chatting with one of my coaching clients this week, and Miguel was saying in his practice, in each of the different rooms, he has televisions up that share different kind of health tips and marketing messages. Whenever he gets back from a holiday, he puts all these holiday photos up there. Everyone wants to talk about the holiday photos. This is connection content. The reason that connection content is also really important is it helps us build a tribe and a community. We bond in around those things more than we're going to bond in around 3 ways to decrease my low back pain. Here's the challenge though. If I'm only sharing connection content, then people are likely to say, man, Angus, you're a really lovely guy, but they're not going to know how I can help them and why they should come and see me, okay? So we need to make sure that we're doing both of those. We've talked about that in previous episodes. In this episode today, what I really want to talk about is one of the keys to getting people to stop the scroll. That's really what we're going to be talking about. In fact, I'm going to be talking through 7 key elements that'll help people stop the scroll. And we need to assume, for starters, that most people are engaging with your content on a mobile device. They're not on their desktop, their laptop. Up to 80% of all internet access now, whether it be for business and or for social, is all done through our mobile device. And so we need to take into consideration the size of the screen with that too. So that brings me to the first key element. Our goal in this, and what we're really talking about, is stopping the scroll. Now, before I get into it, let me tell you why this is super important. You can make the best video in the world that meets all the needs. It does a great job of building authority, trust, getting people to know you, positions you as an authority, as an expert, all those kind of things there too. But if they just flick past that on the social media scroll, whether it be on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, doesn't matter the platform, then they don't get to engage with it, okay? If you cook the most beautiful meal in the world and nobody eats it, If a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, you get what I'm saying with that too. So we've got to stop the scroll. This is why this is important. And in fact, it's interesting. I've spoken to you in the past about a book. I'll look behind me and see. No, it's over here. It's called Breakthrough the Noise, the 9 Rules to Capture Global Attention. A guy by the name of Tim Staples is his name. So many props for this episode. I was looking at this before, okay. They put a disproportionate amount of their focus and effort into stopping the scroll. They understand that if they can't get somebody to watch the start of the video, and Tim and his team work with huge brands, GoPro, Nike, big telecommunication companies, all those kind of things. All of their effort goes into the first 7 seconds of the video. It's a lot of what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so back to it. Point number 1 is, once we understand that people are really going to be engaging with our content through their mobile device, we really need to maximize the screen. Now, people like to tell you that size doesn't matter, and maybe it doesn't in some areas, but when it comes to the screens on our phone, size absolutely matters, and we need to take up as much space as possible. Now, here's what this means as I look around from my phone. It means that when you're shooting your video, I want you to keep 2 things in mind. I want you to start to shoot your videos either in what we call portrait. So this is where our phone is upright like this here too. Or if you're going to shoot it in landscape. So if you're watching this video right now, depending on where you might be watching a snippet of it on Instagram, or depending on where you're kind of watching this, I shoot this video here in landscape. So this would be if I was shooting with my phone turned to the side there as well. But the way I go about maximizing the screen is I put borders above and below there as well. Now, back in episode 160, I showed you the editing tools that I use to put the borders on. I do it on my phone, or you could do it on your phone there too. It's called Villo, V-L-L-O. It'll allow you to really easily kind of add borders in around your video. It takes up space there as well. So the first thing, let's summarize that. Maximize the screen. Start shooting your videos either with your phone in that portrait, or start adding borders around your video. Now, let's move this into the second point here too. I like to add borders around my video for 2 reasons. Yes, it helps to take up the space, but it allows me to put an attention-grabbing headline on there, what we refer to as a hook. Now, in episode 160, I did a real deep dive in hooks, and I gave you examples of a bunch of different ones. So you can see here we're starting to go in between episodes. I want you to, perhaps after this one, go back to episode 160, where I tell you all about how we come up with that headline. In fact, it's probably a good idea for you to start to watch what content are you engaging with on social media and what made you stop. So if we're flicking through there's a video that's taking up a bit of space. It catches a bit of your attention already. We'll talk about the other elements in a moment, but there's a headline in there that is something that's of interest to you. We see that headline as quickly as we see the video, and our brain is saying, is this for me? Is it relevant? Does it matter? Does it make a difference? And if the answer is yes to any of those there too, we're likely to stop for a couple of moments. Not going to guarantee I'm going to watch the whole video, but you've piqued a little bit of my interest there too. So this headline that needs to come up the top of the video there is a hook. Some things to think about with a hook. Some of the best hooks are those that stimulate curiosity. Curiosity is one of those things that's very hard to turn away from. We've all been caught with that clickbait, a video that kind of promised you wouldn't believe what was going to happen next. And then when we got into it, and it didn't really deliver. So it's important that if you do have a hook on there, that you deliver with it as well. But as I said, episode 160, I go really deep into this too. So we want a big bold headline in there that I suggest is actually on the video itself, not in the text. This is still actually on the video itself as well. The third thing I want you to think about, remember, in case you're lost, we're going through 7 key elements here that's likely to have you stop the scroll. I touched on this right back at the beginning when I said that when we were walking through the savannah as cavemen and women, one of the things that our brain is primed for is movement. So we need to have movement. Now, movement can look like lots of different things. I've got many of my coaching clients, one in particular, a big shout out to Erin here as well. She's a chiropractor over in Barcelona. She starts a lot of her videos when she's shooting them on her phone, selfie style, moving. She's walking with them. That walking, it's very mesmerizing. There's movement that's happening there too, but it also feels a bit like you're going along on a journey. I've got another great client, Ange, chiropractor in Canada, who does these great kind of walking videos as well. Many of the conversations Ange and I have back, she will record these videos while she's just kind of walking to and from work, sharing little health tips. So movement is something, our brain is primed for movement there too. Now, You actually moving is one way to add movement. Me moving with my hands is another way for me to add movement. I'm adding movement in of books. We'll talk about this, comes under another component before, the brain here. So there's movement happening on the screen. The other way that I add movement to my videos is that sometimes I will add text to the screen, particularly if I'm working my way through a list, a 5-part list that helps you improve your hydration. I might have point 1, point 2, and that text will come up on the screen. That's another way to add movement. Another way to add movement is with having multiple camera angles. So I shoot this podcast now, if you're watching the video version, with 2 cameras. I've got one to the front here, and I've got one over to the side. And so Jason, my amazing video editor, Jason, thank you for your great work. Jason is regularly swapping between the different angles. In fact, my instructions to Jason are that there should be some kind of movement on the screen at least every 30 seconds, okay? So it could be text coming on screen, it could be me moving, it could be my hands grabbing a prop, a book or something to show, it could be a second camera angle there as well, or it could be B-roll. This is really important. It keeps us away from, we're going to talk about backgrounds in a moment, but when you do a video that's just a talking head, you're on a plain background and you're talking, even for a minute there as well, it's not all that engaging, particularly when we're used to watching kind of Game of Thrones and big shows like that where there's multiple camera angles, dragons, fire, all that kind of stuff going on there too. So add movement to your videos is the third key element that's likely to have people stopping the scroll. Thing number 4 is subtitles, okay? Again, I spoke about this in episode 168, and I talked to you there particularly about an app on your phone called Mix Captions that'll really effortlessly allow you to add captions onto your phone. Now remember, given that most people are watching this on their mobile device, the vast majority of them are watching it with the sound completely turned off. They're at work, they're in the bathroom, they're in the line at the bank or shopping, and it's not appropriate for them to have the sound on. Maybe they don't have their headphones. And when we have the captions, the subtitles down the bottom, it increases the number of people that are likely to stop and watch a video. It increases the amount of time that people will watch through your video. And of course, it increases the amount of time, the number of people that actually get to the end of your video. The more time people have with you, the more likely you are to build know, like, and trust. It's time together that helps to build that likability. So add captions. It's not difficult. If you want to learn how to do it, go into episode 168. That was point number 4. Point number 5 is all about the background. I touched on this a little bit beforehand. Think about your background. When I'm thinking about the background, first of all, bright colors are great. Make sure it's not too distracting. Make sure there's not extra noise. Sometimes you can choose a background where there's lots going on. It's super engaging, but it can be distracting. If there's people in the background that are doing things that are more interesting than what you're talking about, I'm going to be much more likely to focus on them rather than focus on you. The best environment for most of your videos to be shot is just in your practice, because there's something slightly intriguing about that environment. It's a little bit of a clinical environment. We get to see behind the scenes. It also means that when the time comes that somebody comes to get into your office, there'll be a level of familiarity. They'll know what it kind of looks like that too. So that'll help them settle into your practice more likely too. But just no boring backgrounds, okay? And even think about this. Our videos tend to have 3 parts to them. There's an introduction, there's a body, and there's a call to action. And it wouldn't be unreasonable for you to shoot all 3 of those in slightly different sections, or change the angle just a little bit so there's some variance inside there. So 1, choose a background that's got some bright colors and some interest, but don't make it distracting. No boring backgrounds. And 2, think about, can I vary my background? Can I shoot my video in multiple little sections that'll help that background be a little bit more kind of engaging also? Thing number 6 to think about is something that I've done a lot in this episode. For those of you that are just listening to the podcast audio version, you will have missed all of them, is I've used props, lots. Now, the 2 major props that I've used, I've showed you 3 different books as we've gone through this. Here's the difference. I could have just spoken about the books, but I didn't. I actually got them off my bookshelf and I showed them to you. So again, there's movement there, there's these props, it's likely to catch your eye. And then the other prop that I used was here. I've got a brain. Now, I use this in some of my chiropractic videos as well, but I use it more and more in the videos for the Marketing Your Practice podcast. This is intriguing. It's something, it's not just a grey brain. When I was buying brains, you could get them that was kind of grey, browny colour, pinky that the brain kind of is. But this one's brightly coloured as well. So not only is it a brain, it's very recognisable that that's what it is. So that's something that most people aren't seeing in their videos. So it's likely to capture a little bit of their attention, their intrigue, and then the bright colours will do it also. So props you can use there too. So again, if you're a chiropractor, maybe the prop that you could be using is a spine. Now we become a little bit kind of numb to these things because they're around all the time. But when people in your community see spines, it really intrigues, captures their attention and their interest. And so if it's appropriate, use a spine. Now, sometimes it's worth thinking about, what other things could I use? I was chatting with a community influencer member this week. We were talking about the impact that posture has, and particularly forward head posture has on neck and shoulders. This video will come out after Halloween, but we're talking about, excuse me, one of the ways to think about is a jack-o'-lantern, the difference to the weight of that pumpkin once it's been kind of hollowed out versus once that's kind of still a whole pumpkin from there also. And so that visual of those two, he was talking about forward head posture, the head gets heavier, and he's got these two kind of props. How heavy is this pumpkin? How heavy is this one? It's something that our communities kind of all know about as well. So props, if you can use them, are really, really helpful. Tony, who used to work with me here, sometimes when he's talking about posture, and again, that idea of the head coming forwards, he'll say it's like having a brick hanging off the front of your head there. It's visually a very obvious metaphor, okay? So if you can use props, then use props. That was number 6. The 7th thing to think about, I think I spoke about this a little bit recently, but I'm going to say it again through here too, is smile. Videos, for many of us, myself included, sometimes are really difficult. We take them really seriously and we forget to smile. And smiling it's so important for many reasons, but one of the things that's interesting that happens with smiling, this is fabulous as we start to understand the research for this. And again, Fiona, another amazing community influencer client there as well, sent me a great video that was saying, when I'm smiling and I've got my happy face like I have at the moment and you're watching it, the mirror neurons in your brain start to smile also. You'll end up smiling. It stimulates the polyvagal kind of system through there as well, a vagal nerve, which helps you feel more relaxed. It'll help you have more of an affinity for me in this situation here too. So smile more in your videos through there as well. Now, smiling and a natural smile takes a little bit of practice. Apparently the trick is this, and again, I learned this in one of the books I said to you at the beginning with too, is we need to make sure our eyes are smiling. When the ocularis muscle in around our eye registers part of the smile, so it's not just our mouth going. Now I'm going to do fake smiles. But when we're actually smiling with our whole face, that's something that our audience will pick up as an authentic smile there too. That will trigger those mirror neurons in their brain, polyvagal system there as well. Much more likely to have them have an affinity with you. So whenever you can, in your videos, smile. It's one of the things that I do before I start my videos. I stop, I get myself all organized, I smile, and then I begin there too. And there are times that you would put stickers in around the camera just reminding me to smile. It's one of the most common pieces of one of the most common pieces of advice that I'm giving when I'm doing video reviews for the community influencer crew. So there it is. These 7 things, these components, when we wrap our video with these components, we're much more likely to stop the scroll. When you stop the scroll, someone's much more likely to spend more time with you with your video. That's much more likely to have them know you, like you, and trust you, and build that affinity for you. A super quick summary again of those 7 points. Number 1, maximize the screen. That means shooting your videos either in this portrait way, or if you're going to shoot them in this landscape way like I do with mine, you pop the borders around them. The top border there has that big bold headline. That's point number 2. Have a big headline there. Make sure that headline is engaging. I go into depth about that in episode 160 as well. Tip number 3 is add movement. I like to have movement at least every 30 seconds in my video. It could be text, it could be change of camera angle that I'm dealing with, it could be me actually moving, it could be me grabbing my prop into the screen there too. Whatever it is, movement every 30 seconds there too. Number 4 is subtitles. In episode 168, I show you an app that'll allow you to do that really easy with your video. Tip number 5, or key number 5 to making sure that you are stopping the scroll, is an engaging background, okay? Choose a background that's not distracting, bright colors, and think about even varying your background as well. Thing number 6, props. What props can you add to your video as well? That makes sense, that might be a little bit intriguing. Curiosity, again, we talk about that. And thing number 7, finally, smile, okay? Big smiles, make sure you have your eyes engaged in the smile as well. These 7 key elements here as well will help you stand out in the social media feeds. More people watching your video, the more chance that you will have of building a community, a tribe, more chance you'll have of people in your community knowing you, liking you, and trusting you. Gang, that's it for today. Hope this has been helpful. As always, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. I look forward to seeing you back here again real soon. See ya. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.